What's going on, everyone? Go and Take the History, coming to you today with a story from Apopka, Florida. Today we're going to be diving into the story behind where I began my fascination in relations to paranormal investigations, where I went on my very first paranormal investigation. And for us to be able to do that, we have to be in Apopka, Florida. Apopka, Florida is a small town in Central Florida. This town is a quaint town. It's part of Orange County. They've known for having an amazing high school football team, gone to state championships. It's the hometown of former professional NFL football player Warren Sapp. If you've checked out my channel before, you may have seen that I did a video on the house that he grew up in, where Warren Sapp grew up. If you haven't had a chance to check that out, definitely check that video out. But we're here looking at a cemetery. As I've talked in previous videos about where it all began, I've had fascinations with the paranormal entities and everything along those lines since about the age of about 6 or 7 years old, was when I had my first exposure to the paranormal. It's where I started to watch Haunted History on the History Channel. It's where I started to read the books that I used to get through the Scholastic book orders or pick up at the book fairs. Getting whatever I could get my hands on at the time period, slowly make my transition over to going to bookstores and reading through various different texts on the subject, ranging from the occult to haunted places to parapsychology, across the board. As I got more and more educated, as I started to increase my vocabulary, started to increase my reading capacity, the access to readings became easier, and I started diving deeper and deeper and deeper. And it was about the high school age is where I decided to go on my very first investigation. And it actually kind of happened spontaneously. There was I was sitting around with my siblings, and we decided that maybe we want to go out and try to find a haunted location. Go out and see if we could find any evidence of a place having paranormal activity. So we started looking around, trying to think of, where is the first place we should go. At the time period, we had internet, but it definitely wasn't as sophisticated as it is today. This was about 2006 or so, 2005, maybe even 2007. I'm trying off the top of my head exactly how old it was. Somewhere between 2005 and 2007 is when I went on my first investigation. So we started looking around, trying to figure out, where is the go-to places, go down the line, think of places that you would suspect based off of the movies you watched, the books that we've read, where would we find spirits? And typically one of the first places we tend to think about is cemeteries. Even though cemeteries typically don't have a very large amount of paranormal activity, there's normally not really much of a connection there. The only time you typically run into something is if there is an intelligent haunting happening, whereas the spirit has some attachment to the location. Maybe the location used to be the private home, then eventually was turned into a cemetery, so there's always that. But normally spirits have an attachment to the location, to where their presence is. And most people, don't really have direct connections to cemeteries, unless maybe they worked in the cemetery, maybe they worked around the block, maybe they used to live on that property. So when it comes to paranormal activity in cemeteries, it's normally not the go-to place where you're going to find the most evidence. However, most people think, oh, ghosts, go to the cemetery. So us being the novices that we were, we thought ghosts, we went to the cemetery. So we get together, we had one audio tape recorder, we had some flashlights, we had some batteries, and we had some motivation. So we went, we started looking around, started talking, asking different questions. Was anyone here to speak to us? Doing basic EVP, basic electronic voice phenomenon type cueing and questioning in the hopes of finding something. Pretty much all we found was, a good time, and had an opportunity to walk around in the cemetery. The cemetery we found ourselves is a cemetery referred to as Plymouth Memorial Gardens. It's a very, very, very small cemetery in Apopka, sometimes referred to as the Plymouth Cemetery. And this cemetery has roughly around just under 300 graves. There's about 291, according to findagrave.com, interments that are there at the location. At the time, I don't think there was that many, and it definitely was not overly being kept up. It wasn't in total ill repair at this time period, but it definitely has seen better days. And in my research for this video, I found that apparently in the years after my first visit there, it has seen better days, and there's actually a big resurgence repairing project put into place to help kind of bring it back to its previous manners and quality conditions. That's the problem with cemeteries sometimes, is unless there's a huge amount of activity happening on a fairly relatively frequent basis, sometimes it finds itself just being completely left and destitute, which is unfortunate. People, they pick these locations as the final resting place. In some cases, it's what the option is. It's the only thing that's available. Sometimes they pick it because it's in their hometown. Sometimes they pick it for the view. And that's a separate video we're going to dive into, is how we determine where our body spends its eternity. How do we make these decisions? That will definitely be a video for the future. And because, I'm still trying to figure that out for myself. I know that I want it to be buried, but I'm not really sure where. So we'll talk about that later on in a different video. But back to this video about my very first paranormal investigation. So I take and we go on this first investigation. We go around. We found out first off how quickly batteries drain. I wasn't really prepared for how quickly the batteries were going to drain. So before we knew it, we were going through batteries pretty quickly. As soon as we hit different spots, we would hit some cold spots in the middle of the cemetery, which was, at the time period we experienced somewhat from our home and our home experiences, but never out and about. And it was definitely a warmer evening. In Florida, it's fairly warm most of the time. We get about maybe 6 to 8 weeks of somewhat winter per year. The rest of the time, it's pretty warm. So to be able to go out on a warm evening and hit a couple cold pockets was definitely something that was interesting. Outside of, some of the cold pockets, there wasn't really any other activity happening in the cemetery at the time. We did go back to the cemetery a few times afterwards, over the course of the next couple of months. That was like our go-to spot that we'd go and hang out, try to make communication, try to make connection, try to find evidence of something going on. And for the most part, outside of, little things here and there, nothing that we really could report, there wasn't much there. But what it did spark is the excitement to go out and about and to be willing to go outside and see haunted places. So I definitely would say that, going out that very first evening was the most important thing. And this is something that I tell everyone. When you want to take and you want to get into the paranormal, definitely do your research before you go out. Make sure you survey the location beforehand. Huge mistake that we made. We did not go out to the location before the sun went down. We went out there when the sun was down. It was dark. It was pitch dark. It's in the middle of an industrial section of the town where there's not a lot of street lights. There's also not a lot of traffic, so there wasn't much happening there. So we were in the pitch dark in the middle of the cemetery. Not a good idea. We don't know about potentially, someone could be living close by. I wasn't really sure who inhabited the areas around. That we didn't have any answers to that, any knowledge of that. We didn't know what the terrain looked like. We could have stepped in a deep hole. We could have fell into a hole. There's no telling. There's a story I'm going to tell, in sooner than later. There's a story of the Florida State Cemetery, prison cemetery. For those who've ever been to Rayford, Florida, and been to the Florida State Prison Cemetery, you know that it's in pretty bad shape. There's a few interments that have literally, the ground has sunk in, and you can almost see the graves. I tried not to look too much into it. I kind of really want to see a skeleton or anything like that at the time. But there definitely was some graves that probably, if I was willing to want to look a little bit deeper into it, I probably would have found them. There were some graves that were barely even buried beneath the ground. They still had little humps above the ground where the bodies were partly going to be exposed once the breakdown of the wooden boxes that they used for the coffins. Bad shape. Thankfully, I went in the morning where the sun was up, so I didn't have to deal with any of those problems, but I definitely could see where this could be a problem for someone who didn't see the cemetery before. Imagine going, I would not want to go to the Florida State Prison Cemetery at nighttime if I'd never been before, because I would have known about all of the holes in some of the interments. There's a lot of terrain issues, and also the fact of the matter is I was almost attacked by 2 dogs. That was another story for another time. Whereas I was finishing up a couple of videos that I was doing at the Florida State Prison, and 2 sets of dogs were barking and they were sprinting down the road towards me. Thankfully, I was able to notice that they were coming, and where it was coming from, I thought there was just dogs in the distance. And then when I physically saw the dogs sprinting my way, I realized very quickly I needed to get into my car for protection. So I get into my car and turn around, and they kind of just watched me as I was going, barking at me. But, if I wouldn't have been paying attention to that, or if I would have been deeper into the cemetery like I was planning on going, that could have been a really bad situation. Thankfully, it wasn't, but it could have been. So that was definitely something that was interesting, to say that I was almost attacked by dogs on one of my cemetery tours, my investigations. That video will definitely come here soon. One of the videos I actually did upload already, and that's the one from the Danny Rolling, the Gainesville Ripper video. If you haven't had a chance to check that video out, definitely make sure you do so. I'll probably put the link down in the description below so you have an easier access to it, or maybe I'll just add the suggestion video to the top of this one. We'll see how it goes. I received some pretty good reviews in relations to the previous video when I dived into my first haunted house, the house that I lived in that was haunted, and I also received some not so positive reviews. And that's one of the things, when you do these types of videos, especially when you're not on camera, is it's hard to really figure out, how to establish the mood. When I'm talking about, my first haunted experience, you kind of want to ease into it. You don't just want to be like, hey guys, this is my first haunted experience, my very first haunted house that I lived in for 3 years. And it's kind of, I don't know. It's weird. I'm trying to get used to, not being in front of the camera and having to look at my mannerisms and facial expressions and things along those lines. So it definitely adds a different context to it. But I do like these a little bit more of these podcasty style videos where I pick a topic, give you guys some videos, some photos and stuff to look at, and then to dive into it. I don't know about you, but some of my favorite content creators have become like my favorite pseudo podcasters. Whereas I don't make podcasts, but I kind of use their videos as podcasts, where I travel. Whenever I'm in the car traveling, I tend to put on some of these longer videos, and I just let them play in the background, and I listen to what they're talking about. I don't know if any of you do that as well. Let me know down in the comments below if that's something that you do as well. Maybe I'm the only one that does that with these videos. But whenever I listen to any of the people that I follow, that's how I listen to most of their videos, is I'll play them as a podcast style, as an audio. I typically will watch them first one time through if they have a video, but if they don't have a video, if it's just more of a still image type discussion video, then I'll just listen to it. And so that's kind of the idea behind this. I was going to go back out to the location, which I probably will do again. Take you guys to the location where it all began with my first paranormal investigation. But you're going to have to wait a little bit for that video to come out. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Let me know down in the comments below what you liked, what you disliked. Hopefully this, my volume is a little bit better, a little bit more cheerful. Not as the tone's not a little bit off. That's the issue with not having a live video, is that sometimes the tone gets off a little bit. Trying to figure out, how do I get my tone to kind of match the context and the nature of the film, the video, whatever project I'm working on. Trying to get the feel right. And sometimes, it doesn't. Sometimes it hits, and sometimes it just doesn't. So that's kind of, what happens sometimes. I kind of like these podcasty style videos, as I mentioned before. Taking you guys along with me. I play these videos, as I mentioned. I play videos that my favorite content creators post, and so hopefully some of you guys do that the same thing as well. Please like the video if you haven't done so already. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet. And to share, the experiences. The more the videos get out, the more the algorithms pick them up. The more exposures that the channel can get, the quicker we can grow. Last time I checked, we were about 170 subscribers away from hitting the 1,000 subscriber mark, which is something that I thought never was going to happen. If you would have came to me 18 months ago and said, hey, you're going to have almost 1,000 subscribers in about a year and a half, I would have said you're crazy. So all these milestones that we're making, we're gaining subscribers, which I'm so appreciative of. We've lost some subscribers, which I'm sad. I wish kind of knew why some of these subscribers left. But people leave and they come, they go. Sometimes there's going to be content that you're going to love, and sometimes there's going to be content you don't love as much. And hopefully, that there's enough variance in how my videos work. Is that just know that if you get 1 or 2 videos in a row that you're not really super engaged with, just know that on the horizon another video is going to pop up. Maybe you come to my channel for filming locations. There's definitely still a few more filming locations in Central Florida that I haven't been to. But unfortunately, I need to save up money. I need to do a lot of planning to get outside of the state of Florida to really do justice with filming locations. There's only a few more left in Florida, some of which are in South Florida, and I live in Central Florida. So driving the 3 hours to South Florida, I almost could just 3 to 4 hours to South Florida. I could almost just drive the 4 to 5 hours to Georgia and hit a lot more locations. So it's one of those catch-22s where in some cases it may be better for me to drive north, cross over into Georgia, and hit some locations than it would be to go to South Florida. But there definitely is some filming locations on the horizon. It's just very expensive right now. Inflation's through the roof, gasoline's through the roof. Everything's costing a whole bunch of money to do. So, every video outside of local videos takes a lot of time, takes a lot of resources, and it takes a lot of planning. So many of you know, money's tight right now. Money's tight for me as well. So, being able to make some of these videos, they're on the horizon. They're things I really want to do, and I'm really excited to do. But, it's just going to take some savings, and that's what I'm trying to work on. I never expect anything from you guys besides watching my videos, subscribing to it, and sharing my video. If you guys ever want to contribute to the channel, the PayPal is there. Any donation goes 100% back into the channel. So if anyone who's donated, thank you guys again. For those who have donated, your money has been put together for good use. It's going to saving up. Just know that the money's not just being spent on other things. It's being accumulated. So if you're like, hey, I donated and I haven't really seen much of a difference in the locations and the styles, just know that I'm working on trying to build up my own savings, as well as taking into consideration the thoughtful contributions that all of you have made. I appreciate all of it. And it's all going 100% towards the filming locations, true crime locations, all the different types of videos that we perform, and I take you guys along with me on these channel. Just know that the money is going to be used for that. So don't feel as if the money's just being received and it's not going towards the making of new videos. It's exactly what it's going towards. It's just taking me a little bit longer to get the money together. So just know that I have so many things on the plan, on the horizon. And who would have anticipated inflation being 9% right now, and some areas hitting 12%, different avenues, different conversation for different time. But definitely, yes, things are a little bit on the tighter end right now. But I have so much that I have in store. Things have slowed down a little bit, so hopefully I can pick it up here very soon to get some really good videos to you guys before the end of the year, as well as the beginning of the first of the year. Video went way too long than I wanted it to. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Catch you guys in the next video. Thank you again for the support so much. Continue to like the video, share the video, comment, let me know what you need. Help us get the videos out to the algorithms so we can get more people to see the videos, view the videos, and help us grow this community. As always, continue to look for the history in film. Catch you guys in the next video. Have a great one, everyone.